Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's session of Beyond the Buy Box podcast. I'm Jen Elmashni here, and I'm so excited. If you've not had a chance to meet dear friend, former colleague, partner in crime from my Vic days, Kelly Rolader, who is the Global VP of Revenue Growth Management, but also has anti-counterfeit brand protection and global insights as part of her remit at BIC and has spent more than 20 years prior to that at Coca-Cola in a variety of global commercial leadership roles, everything from supply chain processes, S&OP, to revenue growth management and a commercial leader in the Asia Pacific market. So we're sitting here with a turbocharged commercial leader today, and I'm really excited to dive into this one, Kelly, because I know that across all of your experiences, if there's one thing you've had a chance to see is lots of interesting twists and turns when it comes to brand, and especially brand integrity and holding on to a level of control and experience that I know you've worked really hard to provide the best experiences for consumers. So thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me. Excited to have a conversation today.
Recognizing you've held a variety of different roles across, commercial organizations, I'd love to hear any stories or examples of when you've faced a major marketplace challenge. Any businesses you've worked on that have just kind of thrown you for a loop, and what happened in that situation, and what sort of behind the scenes action happened to progress through the challenge.
Absolutely. And I think one that comes to mind is probably top of mind for a lot of people in the consumer products industry is the 2025 tariffs. They kind of knocked everybody, on the edge. You started crunching numbers day after day after day, hour after hour, just to find it changed immediately, and it's still changing. And price is one of the ways that we ensure that we're connecting with consumers, that we're able to be at a price point that the consumer sees as affordable. And a tariff kind of knocks you on your edge. And are you going to pass that price on to your retailer? Are you going to pass that price on to the consumer? And so automatically it created this confusion and maybe even a misunderstanding of the brand perception. So I was really important for us at BIC to take a step back and understand what changes were coming along the way and see how we could build a model that could adapt as the changes came so that we could have an intellectual conversation with our retailers to really understand and talk with them through, we have these tariffs. Here's how we've offset some with our global manufacturing footprint. And we do have some that are going to increase our costs. And as a partner, we want to bring that to your attention. So tariffs, I think, were something that disrupted the total market, whether you're walking into the store and looking at the shelf or buying online.
And I love how you mentioned some of these big unanticipated shifts that you didn't necessarily plan for are also the blessing in disguise, having a chance to really assess through the lens of your customers, but also the end consumer on what is the brand value. And maybe kind of threading through that example and any others that had the best laid out plans. Knowing you, I'm sure you and your team had solid kind of data and insights to share. We hear a lot about things that work, oftentimes like the success stories, but were there any kind of learnings, like you might have gone down one path, didn't exactly result in what you had anticipated, then had to shift to get to a really good solid footing?
We quickly realized too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, was not
Mm.
going to work for us. We needed a small group of decision makers that could work with a flexible model. So we built a model internally that could help us understand the day-to-day changes and the different impacts it had on our different categories and our different products. So that when changes came our way, we could run it through the model and we could understand, what was the decision or the conversation we needed to have with our retailer, or did we want to pass that percentage on to ultimately the retailer and the consumer should they choose to pass it on? So for us, it was reducing some of the noise because the change was constant and because everybody wanted to understand it and understand it as quickly as they could. And what we found was reducing some of that noise and keeping that noise to a very small group that could then communicate a well thought through message internally so that the external message was clear as well was really beneficial for our team.
So smart. So smart. And creating a scalable model. Going back a year ago, but it feels like eons ago, and it's still here today at the same time. And but I just remember like the speed at which, especially for, if I think about online marketplaces where you're getting reactions
Yes.
right away, the movement of what consumers choose to buy, what they don't buy, how fast other resellers move on your behalf, things are settling. And it's so smart to, from an inside out view, having that anchor.
Yeah, and what really played out in the real world was some did pass on, but a lot of tariffs didn't. And so we may see a lingering effect of some of that, but we also have seen, the tariffs move up and down and change throughout the year. So it's still something that we've got to go back to that model and those core decision makers to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah. And maybe staying on the same page, one of the things that, your experience in touching on mega brands,
Yep.
Coca-Cola as well as Bic, but across a variety of different sub brands and categories and experiences. Share with us a little bit about any certain tactics that you have leaned on or deployed that really hold on to that kind of brand integrity. I've been in that spot where you make a choice that you're not necessarily really playing to what the brand ambition is, but you gotta just get the quick win now. What tactics have you deployed or leaned on time and time again?
The number one thing that I've leaned on is really knowing what your brand stands for and how do consumers connect with it. Because if you lose that connection, you're going to lose the buyer. You're going to lose the consumer. So, for instance, Coca-Cola, refreshing. They bring happiness to people. It brings people together. If you think about the original mission of Coca-Cola was to bring an affordable beverage to everybody across the world. They used years and years ago the price of a bus or a train ticket to, across the world to create that affordable connection with consumers. And at Vic, it's very similar. We want to make products that our consumers think about every day, that they need to purchase that when a kid goes to school or you go to work, you want that Bic pen really top of mind and you're able to connect the quality of Bic with the affordability. So for me, it's really knowing what your brand stands for and how does it connect with consumers. And it's really easy to go on gut instinct there, but you've got to really leverage data to help you understand that.
Yes. It's hard to refute actions, especially when it's backed by very, very clear data. I know a part of your role that has expanded over time, which is so critical in anti counterfeit. Oftentimes, others out there in the ethos that are trying to represent and kind of copycat what your brand is. What learnings have you, had as part of how to navigate the anti-counterfeit world?
Yeah. So when I took this on, I would tell you I was an absolute newbie in this world. And so the first thing that has really gained my attention and shocked me was people will counterfeit anything. That just blows my mind. What we've learned though is you got to track the source. And it's a little bit like whack-a-mole, like we used to play when we were kids, because you will identify a counterfeiter and you'll take action against them and then they'll pop up somewhere else. So you've really got to have that always on mentality with counterfeit. So at BIC, we know what people counterfeit on our products. We have certain patents on certain pieces of our products, shape, different things like that, and intellectual property. So we know where they're going to go and what they're going to do, but we don't know where they're going to pop up, what part of the world. And tying back to the tariffs, we're seeing a lot of counterfeit pop up here in the United States, but it's now harder to get product into the country with the tariff. So it's popping up in other places. So we really got to that always on mentality because it's a criminal activity from a criminal's point of mind. So you'd have to take off your moral hat and think about, oh, if I wanted to sell this illegally, what would I do? It has been a fascinating new piece of my portfolio for me.
Yeah. And I'm sure the complementary piece of it is how you approach profitable growth. It's data, it's scale,
Yeah,
it's strategy and anchoring as you're collecting intelligence of where these, players are popping up and why. And that's a big part of, our platform here at POTOO, which is very, it's very much leaning on what the data suggests and building your arsenal of insights that I'm sure there's
absolutely.
a lot of like connection um, as you dive further into that arena.
Yep, I've said many times that I think data is the new currency. So I think you really have to rely on the data that you have and be able to take action from it. Build a story that your stakeholders will understand and then be able to take action. We've done a lot of that in the counterfeit space, is incorporating new data and understanding what the data is telling us so that we know who to go after next or where to focus on. We've also learned through that data that consumers value the quality of books. So we've over rotated on really talking about the value, the quality, the safety, particularly in our lighter category, should anything ever happen when they have got a lighter in their hand.
Yeah. And I think about leaving our community members with one or two practices that you would advocate to start doing right away. Those practical actions that can feel really daunting to
Yes.
pave change. And there's a lot of community members who sit in a variety of different capacities. What would you encourage them to do?
Yeah. So I'll go back to really getting to know your consumer and how they connect with your brand. Follow the data where it takes you and don't make the excuse that you don't have enough data. There's tons of data out there in the world that you can either go get or you have at your fingertips that you can interpret. But use that data. And the reason I say that is because we all make mistakes and we can't assume that we know the answer. Often, gut instinct leads us down the wrong path and in the wrong direction. So I tell my team all the time and ask them all the time, what's the data telling us? And when you balance what the data is telling us with our experience, you really come out at the better end of a story than just going on gut instinct. So trust the data.
Well said from the data queen herself. Great advice, and also just really good anchoring reminder for many of us, leaders out there and practitioners. So thank you
Of
for sharing.
course.
And thank you for sharing your examples. Very, very relevant and so real.
Course. Yeah, it's been fun.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye bye.